Hello, welcome to GPCA TV. I'm John Baker and I'm here in Dubai at the 13th Annual GPCA Forum. I'm talking now to Murat Sönmez, Head of the Centre for the Fourth Industrial Revolution at the World Economic Forum. Well, welcome Murat. You're talking at the forum about the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Can you very briefly explain what that is?
Sure, it's a pleasure, by the way, John, to be here. The Fourth Industrial Revolution is this simultaneous and rapid transformation happening in multiple areas, such as artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, blockchain, gene editing, robotics, new materials, autonomous vehicles and drones, and more.
Mm-hmm. That seems to fit in with some of the areas the chemical industry is interested in. What should the industry be looking at?
I think there are a couple of questions that require a fresh perspective. The first one is if you look at technologies such as artificial intelligence, particularly machine learning, we are now at a phase where the algorithms are developed from the data itself. So there's no source code, so there's no human being writing these algorithms. And they'll be more powerful than any insight humans or experts can generate. And the fundamental questions in that scenario is who owns the intellectual property to the algorithms? Who owns the data? How can you use the data if it's coming from different sources? And if something goes wrong with the algorithms, who's liable? So these are questions that boards of chemical companies should really look into. And the second area is what happens in downstream affects upstream. Here the downstream is more on the consumer side. If you look at shared economy, my son is not going to buy a car. He wants to share existing assets. So it will have a huge impact on consumption patterns. And finally, if you look at technologies such as drones, it will change how we do logistics. So if companies are looking at using drones to have more efficient delivery mechanisms, then there needs to be a new set of regulations on governing drones as well.
So what should senior executives in the industry really be looking at now? How can they start on this process?
A couple of things. Whatever change experts predict will happen much faster. And in artificial intelligence or machine learning, there was a pivotal moment 2 years ago when a Chinese game called Go was mastered by AlphaGo, which was developed by DeepMind. And it happened 2 years ago in March 2016. And if you had asked experts how far we were away from mastering it, the answer was 10 to 20 years away. So experts can no longer predict the future. So that's the number one. The second thing is they should look at the behaviors of the consumers and walk backwards and see what impact it will have. Because if we properly deploy these technologies, we can improve agriculture yields dramatically. We can reduce congestion in the cities. We can reduce energy consumption, which I think will benefit everybody.
So thinking about that, what you're saying, how is that going to change the way chemical production works and how they get product to market?
Yeah. I think a key technology in this area potentially is three-dimensional printing or additive manufacturing. We're not too far away from printing pretty much any product anyone can imagine, and the cost curve will come down. Just to give you an idea, at ETH Zurich, they're able to 3D print a functioning human heart. And with that technology, we can wipe away the number one killer in the world, which is cardiovascular diseases. But it requires a different way to look at supply chain or the value chain and importing of raw materials to be able to 3D print the end products. And that has profound implications on trade regulation, customs, IP ownership, and liability if something goes wrong.
Do you see this impacting the industry pretty quickly, and what about the impact on jobs, for instance?
The impact will happen much faster than anyone can predict, including ourselves, because we're no longer able to use the past as a reference point, because the innovation curve is happening much faster and wider than anyone can think of. In terms of jobs, there will be new jobs. And I'll give you one example. For example, in the use of drones, we work with the government of Rwanda to help them regulate the use of drones. They were using it to deliver medical supplies to clinics around the country. But because of lack of regulation, they couldn't scale it. We work with the government of Rwanda to create the first and still only national drone regulation based on performance benchmarks. It took us 4 months. Now they can scale a drone economy, and they know what kind of jobs are needed, and they can train and skill their employees for the jobs of the future, or their people, and then also look into the education system and converge on that. So by scaling the new technologies, we can predict what kind of jobs are needed. It will be different for sure, And for the existing jobs, we need to upskill and continuously reskill the population.
Right, that all sounds really interesting. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.